So today we're going to talk about, well, we're going to talk about a few things, but we're going to open up talking about Google Authenticator and how they just rolled out something that's pretty meme-worthy in my eyes. Because at least in the past, we could be like, hey, it's just offline. It's no big deal. It's fine if it's not open source. Like, you can just turn off the internet access to that app. It's like not a big deal. But now this is like, now we can officially say, like, just don't touch Google Authenticator.
Ridiculous, yeah.
Right.
Google Authenticator is an app that you store your 2FA codes for, so it's just like any of the authenticators we recommend, like Ravio or Aegis. Is that how you say this? I never hear these words out loud. I just see them on the screen.
That's funny when you make video content, because no one actually says these because it's all just online. And yeah, but then I've heard Aegis, I've heard I don't know.
Just guessing.
People know what we're talking about.
Yeah, you store those 6-digit codes in there, it generates them. Pretty simple. The old version, it hadn't been updated for a long time. They released it in like 2010 or something, and then pretty much never changed it except for like a minor material design update a few years ago. And then a few days ago they released a major update which included like cloud syncing, so all of your codes are backed up to your Google account now. And the meme-worthy changes that we were talking about is that new cloud sync functionality doesn't end-to-end encrypt your data. It's just sending your 2FA secrets directly to Google, where they could access them if they wanted. Or they could be, if there was ever a data breach, they could be hacked.
Yeah, that is very problematic.
How do you function?
Because it kind of like turns what 2FA is supposed to be right on its head.
Right.
Because it's supposed to be just something you have, not something that's stored on the cloud for someone else to access. Because now it's effectively just like a second password, almost. Does Google still not allow you to view and export your seeds? Because that used to be also my gripe with them.
That, I believe so. I have to actually check that out, because I have heard that from people, that it still doesn't let you back up your codes, even though there's this cloud sync functionality.
That's what I've heard as well. So if anyone wants to disprove that, definitely let us know in the comments. But based on both of our understandings, Google still doesn't let you view or export your seeds, meaning if you want to use a different app, like if you want to move over to an open source app, because again, this is all an open standard. There's no reason for these companies not to give you that seed. There's no security risk to that, as far as I can tell, assuming they maybe they'll ask for a password or your PIN if you set one up. But like outside that, there's no reason for them not to share it with you unless they want to keep you in that ecosystem. And honestly, maybe that's what Google's doing here. Maybe this is Google's way of responding to things like Authy, and they're trying to keep people in the Google Authenticator ecosystem. I don't know what incentive they have to do that. Oh, there is an update now.
I was just gonna say, I think I just saw it, but you can say it.
Yeah, so there is an update that we're seeing right now, actually. This happened like right before we started recording. The company has plans to add end-to-end encryption to Authenticator, quote, down the line.
Interesting. So I bet it'll be a situation similar to how Chrome syncs all of your Chrome data, where it's end-to-end encrypted with your Google password by default, but you can add an optional like sync passphrase to encrypt it with that instead of your Google account credentials. So I bet it'll be like an optional password that they let you add.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, this isn't rocket science. What do you self-host versus what FOSS do you use versus what do you pay for? That's a big question. I will say I actually answered this kind of on a surveillance report. I think it was SR 117 or 118. Very recent, last few weeks. Someone asked like what we self-host, Nate and I on surveillance support, and I don't really self-host anything. I really don't like self-hosting things because I don't want to be responsible for my data, you know, and that's the whole selling point of self-hosting something, which I fully understand. But like uptime for me is super important. You know, like I can't stand when something is down for even 10 minutes, and I hate troubleshooting things. I hate maintaining my own stuff. I like things to just work. I used to be more like in control of everything, and I feel like I've hit a good balance now with my life where I trust the services that I'm giving control to, and I trust them to handle my data, my privacy and security extremely well, but they can also guarantee uptime. They can guarantee that like everything is just going to work almost 24/7. So that is something I've migrated to. With that said, I do have a Synology NAS sitting there that they sent me for a review. And I just picked up two 14 terabyte hard drives a couple days ago. So I'm going to pop those babies in there, and we're going to see what the self-hosting life is more like. The one thing I do really want to self-host is photos, because I don't have a very good photo solution. Right now I have just like an external hard drive with all my photos lying on it, and it's a ridiculous configuration. If someone asks me, hey, do you have that photo that we took 3 years ago? And I go, yeah, but it's going to take me like 5 hours to find it because I have like no organization system for it. So I would love to get over on like the Synology NAS and be able to upload and view my photos from anywhere. And I think that it has its own like Google Photos-esque features built into Synology software where you can easily like sort things and, you know, have everything organized very cleanly. So that's like the one thing I could justify self-hosting. Everything else, it's hard for me to justify self-hosting. It really is, because there's such great options on the market already that are all zero knowledge or end-to-end encrypted, and the implementation is fantastic. And I also have a very, very minimal digital lifestyle. I don't do much with tech. And if it wasn't for Techlore, I probably wouldn't even have a computer, which is what I said earlier. So like, I just don't do much with my tech. Like photos are the only thing that like I really need to worry about storing and doing something with them. That's really it. I mean, Apple at this point has released end-to-end encryption across almost all of their cloud services at this point. And with the advanced data protection program, which we covered in a previous Techlore talks. End-to-end encryption is a powerful feature that provides extra protections, but at the cost of enabling users to get locked out of their own data without recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
that's a common talking point against end-to-end encryption. That was the public reason that Apple gave for not introducing end-to-end encryption on all their services for a long time.
Yeah, so starting with the next version of iOS, which isn't out yet, it's out in beta right now, 16.2. iCloud Advanced Data Protection is going to cover pretty much everything in iCloud except for mail, contacts, and calendar, which is because those are built on like legacy technologies. They wouldn't be able to support third-party mail clients, that type of thing. So it's kind of a tricky problem to do. Yeah, email and like calendar and contact sync, all of these technologies are built on like really old, like beginning of the internet type of web standards, basically, where like there's so much backwards compatibility and like legacy software involved in that space. It's really hard to build like a secure platform on top of it, which is why like usually we don't even recommend email at all for like a primary method of secure communication, because even with encryption technologies like PGP, there's so much that's unencrypted throughout the whole chain of communication that's avoided if you use like a modern messenger like Signal. And it's the reason that encrypted email providers like ProtonMail, they don't work well with third-party clients. You have to use like their web interface or something like that, or you can use like their bridge program that kind of like converts it from encrypted to plain text on your computer. But it's a pretty big hassle to kind of convert all of that stuff to modern encryption, and To me, it's understandable that they didn't try and like tackle that, but I certainly wouldn't be recommending people use iCloud Mail.
Like that's what Apple,
Right.
this isn't a default.
Exactly.
If you're just using iCloud, you don't have end-to-end encryption, but if you enroll in the advanced data protection program, then they are like, hey, you have to download a recovery key, which you should have one set up anyway. If you have an iCloud account, you don't have a recovery key, you should set one up because it's a little bit more secure. And if you already have one set up, it's the same recovery key. You don't actually have to set up a new recovery key when you enable advanced data protection. And so Google could do the same thing where it's like, hey, by default, we encrypt our data in transit, at rest, blah, blah, blah. But if you want end-to-end encryption, you have to opt in and download a recovery key, which, by the way, if you're already managing your own authenticator app, you should already be kind of doing this, because if you're using something like Aegis, whatever you want to say, you're probably backing up your vault somewhere and saving a password to unlock that vault, which is, in my eyes, equally as challenging as just saving a recovery key in your password manager. So, yeah, they should have never rolled this out without end-to-end encryption. It's kind of a joke, and I'm glad that the community stepped up. This is like a valid community criticism, I feel. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Is there another authenticator app that offers end-to-end encrypted cloud syncing? On all like operating systems, I guess all mobile operating systems like this.
There's an app that we've been looking at lately that recently went open source. It's called 2FAS.
Oh, that's right. I saw that one too.
I think you've seen that.
Yeah.
They went open source earlier this year, and it seems to be, I think they have a browser extension as well as mobile app, so it's cross-platform.